But, you know, like a guy carrying a movie with like, you know, not like official acting experience, I thought he did just a fine job. Like, you know, I'm not going to cast him to be the next like lead in a superhero film or something, but this is a guy that does know how to act and is only going to get better and looks the part of the role he's playing too, and plays it very well too.
This is not an expedition. It's an execution. When they put you in here, they don't want you to return. And even if you do, and even if they keep their promises, what freedom waits for you?
What is up, Drive-By Movies here, and you're watching
Fresh Releases.
My name is James.
My name is Blaise.
And today we're checking out the indie film that just caught us all by surprise, Iron Lung.
There aren't enough of us left to be throwing lives away, but there is too much at stake not to take calculated risks. Ian doesn't understand that. You don't understand that!
I just want to live.
Markiplier's Iron Lung is the story of a post-apocalyptic future after the Quiet Rapture event. A convict explores a blood ocean on a desolate moon using a submarine called the Iron Lung to search for missing stars / planets. So anyways, this is Markiplier's directorial debut, his first movie. I'm sure if you're watching this, you saw and heard about his kind of self-financing journey of getting this movie made, and this is like a true indie in the sense of like he wasn't backed by any studio or anything. He really did all of this DIY, self-funded. So yeah, it was kind of interesting to see that story unfold, and then made me want to go see the movie, and we both checked it out. James, what did you think of the film?
Yeah, I mean, I think what more I'm probably going to want to talk about is more so much the story behind the scenes on this movie. Just because I hadn't heard of it until I went to Alamo Drafthouse. I forgot what movie I went to go see. But Iron Lung posters were covering up the entire hallway. And I was just like, what is this movie? It looks like dinosaur teeth. And so looking into it and then just finding out through coworkers who are fans of Markiplier's this guy Mark's YouTube channel, and how he it's just a video game that he did Let's Plays on, and just really, like, I might not know the whole story, so don't get upset if like we don't like know everything, but just from what I understand is that he was a fan of the game, was doing Let's Plays, and he funded this and then just got it made with just like through his love of the game. And now it's like a huge success, because I believe the movie was made under 3 million, and it, like, you know, I believe tripled that or even quadrupled that in its opening weekend, and even past that it's probably made like quite a lot more. Like, so congrats to him. And that's what, like, I definitely want to talk about most. But then there's also the plot of the movie, which is so but what are your thoughts on the movie, Blaise?
Okay, let's probably start talking about the movie, and then we can maybe go into the behind the scenes about the movie, because there's definitely enough to talk about. I would say both. Getting into the movie, I thought this movie, I didn't know what to expect, but I kind of knew at the same time, like, all right, this is his first movie, so, you know, I'll take everything with a grain of salt. He's also the lead of the movie, so he's in, I would say, 99% of the screen time. I think he's in every shot pretty much. But, you know, aside from a couple shots of an ominous intercom system. But yeah, like I thought the film opened up very strong. It has a cool kind of opening. It opens to this point where you see that kind of Iron Lung getting like welded shut, and they do some world building there with like these group of people that are, you know, that have him in the Iron Lung. They're welding it shut and kind of giving him the rundown of like what he's going to see down there. Like he's going through this kind of blood, like, I guess it's like an ocean of blood essentially, and all that, like, none of that escaped me. I think it's just like the small nuances of the kind of world and like the history of it is maybe stuff that I think they did talk about in the movie, but then there's so much other stuff that it was kind of hard for me to keep track of what was actually necessarily going going on, I guess, but I don't think that distracted from the story at all for me. I just think that first scene where there's other actors in it, it was actually really strong and really good at the world building, and I thought the visuals were really cool. I think the film lacked a lot when he goes back down, and he kind of never really emerges again from like the depths. Like he goes like different coordinates kind of, but he's still in the submarine, and you're really just stuck with him for like a 2-hour runtime, it feels like, because I think the runtime is 2:10, and that first scene that I liked was probably like 10 minutes, and then the rest is just him. And I feel like that's kind of where the film lacked. Is I felt like I knew where this story was going, but it took forever to get where it was going, and it didn't pay off being that it took longer.
That's exactly it. Yeah. I mean, part of the problem, like one of the things we talk about on this show a lot is like runtime. And this is another movie that definitely would have benefited by cutting out a lot of the fat within this movie. And not that like, you know, it was like a chore getting through this movie. It's just, this is very clearly a movie made for fans of the game or fans of this YouTuber's channel. And not to say that like, if you aren't familiar with either and you enjoyed it, that like, I don't mean to negate that or in any way. Like awesome if that was the case, but just, you know, for a movie that, you know, has so much like love that went into it, you really see that in everything. You see that with just like the production design, and then like, you know, this is a guy who's not an actor. Like, you know, I'm sure he does skits or something on his YouTube channel at some point. I'm sure he's acted. From what I've understand, he's done like a couple like actual documentaries, but mainly it's just like his personal persona. But, you know, like a guy carrying a movie with like, you know, not like official acting experience, I thought he did just a fine job. Like, you know, I'm not going to cast him to be the next like lead in a superhero film or something, but this is a guy that does know how to act and is only going to get better and looks the part of the role he's playing too, and plays it very well too. So this is definitely like a perfect storm of things that worked, but just, you know, he doesn't have that experience of like making a full feature film. And if this is it, like, what a way to start. Because like I get the vibes of this like kind of like John Carpenter's like first film, I believe it's called Dark Star, like Steven Spielberg's Duel. Like I'm not putting it at that level of like, oh, they are going to be like Mark's going to be the next Steven Spielberg, or he's going to be the next, you know, like big director and stuff. But just the fact that he was able to do all this with no like previous background of making a feature length film, like it like was just very impressive.
Mm-hmm. Let alone, so getting a little bit into that other side of the coin is like, I do think like getting this movie in theaters, like, yeah, he split 50% of his income, like, or, you know, box office ticket sales with the distributor, I think. And obviously the theaters took their cut as well. But I think that the fact, like, I listened to him talk about how he needed to do that because I forget how many millions of subscribers he has on his YouTube channel, but he wanted them to, like, he really knows his audience and he wanted them to be able to see it, as opposed to like only doing, you know, New York and LA screenings. He really wanted to be that big budget kind of affair where like you could just go to your multiplex and this movie was playing that week, or the first week it came out, and then, you know, everything else after was awesome, but he knew his fans would show up at least that first weekend. I think it's been in theaters a lot longer now, but I really respected that he respected and knew who his fans were enough to like want to get, like, this was really for them, it seemed like, and it seems like they showed up in droves to kind of like thank him for doing that, as opposed to him doing, you know, New York, LA, Chicago screenings and then kind of rolling it out slowly, maybe even going on a tour. Like that's another way he could have released this movie. I don't know if that would have been a better release, but I kind of feel like the fans would appreciate this release. Like, even though the theaters weren't packed, there was enough to sustain as if it was just any other indie movie that had come out, or a big budget movie that not everyone was clamoring for. You know, like there's still people in every screening, enough to sustain the momentum that this film had. So yeah, I really respect him for that. I think that was awesome. And like you said, he was making his first movie kind of like in a limited sense. Like I think the original game that this is based on is only like a 2-hour game or something, or an hour-long game. Like it's really not long, if you know what you're doing or you know how it plays. I think it can be longer if you're really like trying to discover everything, or you've never played a video game before, obviously. But yeah, like I thought that was cool that he did like a limited kind of movie, instead of being like, no, I want to do like the Zelda movie or something like that, where it would take a lot more. Like he took something that was very limited, one location, one actor, and did it himself.
Yeah. And I can tell also, like, with some of the stuff that, like, might have dragged for normal audiences, I could tell, though, while watching, I was like, okay, this is something that's, like, definitely very specific that you probably have to do in the game. And it's just, like, a love letter to that, basically. But, yeah, it's just, like, overall, just, like, the impressiveness of that. And just also, like you mentioned, just, like, that opening weekend, like, I can imagine, though, just, like, everyone just kind of going to the theater and just not knowing the people sitting next to you, but the fact that you all have the same thing in common of whether of loving the YouTube channel or the video game itself, like, just like that must have like been like something like not so much like a cult, but just feeling like you're in a cool club and you're in the know of something. And, you know, like it was big enough to where it captured our interest. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this YouTuber, but I wasn't, though. And like just the fact that it came out and just drew that kind of buzz, was number 2 at the box office and almost beat Send Help. And it's possible it might have even, because I know that there's a lot of box office mishaps with just like kind of reporting how much money this movie actually made. I think it still technically came out as number 2 during that opening weekend, but just I imagine that first weekend must have felt like a crazy event for its fans. And like for anyone who saw it and who is a fan of his YouTube channel, like I'm curious what it was like. Did you make some friends seeing the movie? Was there like groups of like planning ahead to meet up opening night? Like, just sounds like it probably was a blast.
So one criticism I have beyond, like, obviously we already mentioned, like, you could cut the runtime and
Yeah.
there was stuff in there that might have not been felt like it needed to be included. I know he worked closely with the developer of the game to get everything basically lore accurate and make sure everything was perfect, which I appreciate that. But as somebody who didn't have any concept of the game, like some of that stuff might have just seemed like a little bit of fluff to me. But I will say, for a horror movie, I didn't ever feel like this was a horror movie even watching it. Like, I didn't think there was anything, like, yeah, there was a lot of blood, and he touted that this movie had the most blood ever, like, in a movie. I don't even think that that's factually true. But also, I don't think that this movie was ever for once even, like, scary. Like, I know it's, like, trying to be cosmic horror, but I feel like it didn't even quite land that well. So right. I mean, that it's his first movie. Like, I'm not really gonna like complain too much about that, but I just wish that like it doesn't really need to even be classified as a horror movie in that sense. I guess it's a genre movie, but it just doesn't need to be like, it's not like there was never one scary moment. And I'm surprised because I think the video game's like basically like kind of like Five Nights at Freddy-esque, where it's like has jump scares and stuff in the game. I could be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure that that's what that is. You know, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but yeah, I just felt like that was something that maybe once he makes his second movie, if it's going to go in the same vein of being a horror movie, like maybe he works on making, you know, the audience scared or playing with the emotions of the audience. Cause I feel like cinema is one of the most powerful art forms in the fact that you get to play with the audience, but we'll have to see that in a sophomore film.
Yeah, and I'm curious, you know, like, yeah, I did get the same vibes. Like, you know, this is as much of a horror film as, like, you know, movies where people kind of argue, like, is Alien or Aliens technically a horror film? Like, yeah, there's subgenres of the horror. And this movie, like, yeah, I wouldn't say it's a straight up horror, but it's got that dark, crazy, you know, horror induced like feeling to it. Not so much like I'm actually scared. Like, yes, this is a gory movie, but not the gory I think of when horror. It's just like a dude swimming through blood, basically. Like, it's still nasty, it's still gross. I ain't doing it, but I'm not even doing the corn syrup too with red dye. But just but you know, this movie is like definitely not going to be scary if you went into this movie expecting like, oh, I want to get scared. No, but yeah, for someone who doesn't know about the video game, like, I guess you could go into fun territory of just like kind of creating your own mythology within the movie. I'm not sure if the producers of the original game would like something like that, but at the end of the day, we have a successful video game movie though. And whether we get a sequel or maybe Markiplier, sorry, I know it's Markiplier, but just looking at his name, I always forget where that L is. So sorry, audiences, but like whether or not he goes to make a sequel, or maybe, you know, maybe he'll get the street cred to make a movie like Dead Space or something that people have been dying to see a movie for, and kind of has that similar like kind of old sci-fi feel to it, like, is yet to be seen. Yeah,
I think that would be awesome. And I feel like if anything, he's kind of proved that maybe he can do something else like on that big kind of stage, like especially in theaters. I don't know if I feel like the studios will galvanize behind this just because of how much of success this movie was, but I don't know if he is going to be as interested in that. I know he likes to play a lot of these smaller kind of indie games, and maybe diving into something else like that where he has more creative control is probably more along lines of something he wants to do. But then again, maybe he wants to work with the studio because he's never done that before, and he can take on a bigger property where he doesn't have to worry about any of the legal. I think that could be cool. So I'm just excited to see where his career goes. I think the guy's a good guy, and it seems like, he has a good head on his shoulders, and I'd like to see where he goes in the future.
Yeah. So, like, this isn't a movie that was made for me, but like, it's a movie that generated my interest, and still, like, I enjoyed what I watched, even though I necessarily didn't give this movie a great review, I guess you could say. It's not a movie also I'd recommend to like just casual moviegoers, but it's a movie I'm glad I watched and still respect the heck out of, even though it might not have been my cup of tea. But great way to help support the show. Leave a comment down below letting us know what you thought about it, any of the fun facts that we've been missing out on. Also, if you haven't, you can also rent it through our Amazon affiliate link in our description box below. If you haven't had the chance to see a movie, that's a great way to help us and help this YouTuber.
And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and smash the like button, hit the subscribe button, and click that notification bell to get all of our latest updates.
And speaking of updates, you can catch all our social media links down below for Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, also our own personal letterbox accounts. That's it for this week. Tune in next week for a brand new video.